Get on the ground now. The command cracked across the afternoon air so sharply that conversations stopped mid-sentence, and even the valet line went still. Outside the Grand Regent Hotel in downtown Arlington, where polished glass reflected rows of American flags and black SUVs lined the curb, heads turned toward the woman in dress uniform standing beside the entrance. She did not move at first. Her back remained straight, chin level, white gloves folded neatly over a leather folder pressed to her side. 4 silver stars gleamed on each shoulder beneath the October sun. Lieutenant General Vanessa Brooks had spent 32 years serving a country that often asked for sacrifice faster than it offered respect, and in that single moment, she recognized the tone before she recognized the man. Officer Tyler Grant strode across the sidewalk with one hand raised, badge bright against his navy vest, jaw tight with certainty. He looked at her uniform the way some people looked at expensive jewelry in the wrong neighborhood. Suspicion first. Questions later. I said get on the ground. He repeated, louder this time. Nearby guests in suits slowed to watch. A bellman froze with a luggage cart half-turned toward the revolving door. A little girl holding her father's hand stared wide-eyed at the medals on Vanessa's chest, then at the officer closing in. Vanessa inhaled once, steady and controlled, the same measured breath she had used before briefings, deployments, funerals, and speeches no one remembered until they needed courage. Officer, she said calmly. There is no need for this. Her voice was low, precise, impossible to rattle. That only seemed to irritate him more. Need? Grant gave a short laugh that held no humor. Ma'am, impersonating military personnel is a federal offense. A murmur moved through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Someone lifted a phone. Someone else whispered, "Is this real?" Vanessa looked past him for 1 second at the marble entrance of the hotel. Inside, the National Veterans Leadership Gala was beginning in less than 20 minutes. Her name sat at the top of the program. She was scheduled to receive an award honoring battlefield logistics that had saved hundreds of lives overseas. None of that mattered on the sidewalk right now. Tyler Grant had already decided what he was seeing. Vanessa slowly lowered the leather folder to the hood of a parked sedan. Inside were prepared remarks, a folded photo of her late husband, and a cemetery pass still tucked from that morning. She had come straight from Arlington National Cemetery, where frost still clung to the grass near his headstone at sunrise. Now dust swirled at her polished shoes while strangers judged her in silence. Read the name tag, she said. Run the credentials. Call your supervisor. There are many ways to do your job correctly. Grant stepped closer, expression hardening. There are also people who think a costume gets them respect. The little girl tightened her grip on her father's hand. Vanessa did not blink. Her eyes remained steady, dark and unreadable, carrying the weight of decades in rooms where she had been underestimated before introductions were complete. The breeze lifted the edge of her service ribbon bar. Somewhere across the street, a siren wailed and faded. The city kept moving. The sidewalk did not. Last warning, Grant said. Hands where I can see them. Vanessa slowly raised her gloved hands shoulder high, not in fear, but in discipline. Cameras angled upward. The hotel doorman stood motionless beneath the brass canopy. A veteran wearing an old Marine cap removed it quietly and held it against his chest. Grant reached for his radio, eyes never leaving her face. Vanessa glanced once toward the phone in her breast pocket, then back at him. Officer, she said, softer now, almost kind. You are making a mistake that will outlive this afternoon. Grant's radio hissed with static as he clipped it back to his shoulder, the sound sharp against the strange silence that had settled over the curb. Vanessa kept her hands visible, white gloves bright in the sun, while a ring of onlookers widened by the second. Taxi drivers leaned from open windows. Hotel guests paused with rolling bags halfway to the entrance. Across the street, 2 office workers stopped beside a food cart and stared. Nothing pulls a crowd faster than confidence colliding with authority. Identification, Grant said. Vanessa nodded once. Left inside breast pocket. He hesitated, then stepped forward and removed a dark leather credential holder with deliberate suspicion. He flipped it open, glanced down, and frowned. Military seal. Department access card. Name engraved in gold. He snapped it shut as if the facts themselves annoyed him. Fake credentials are common, he said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. Especially good ones. A few people exchanged uneasy looks. Others kept filming. Vanessa studied him with the same composed patience she once used on young lieutenants who mistook volume for leadership. "Officer Grant," she said, reading the name stitched above his vest. "There is still time to correct course." He stiffened when she used his name. "Do not tell me how to do my job." "Then do it properly," she replied. The little girl from before tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, why is he mad at the soldier lady?" The father did not answer right away. He only looked at Vanessa's ribbons, then at Grant's expression, and seemed unsure which uniform carried more weight. Wind moved down the avenue in a cool sweep, rattling the row of flags above the hotel canopy. Vanessa's medals clicked softly against one another, a small metallic sound that somehow carried farther than the officer's raised voice. She had earned each one in places most people only saw in headlines. Desert heat that melted batteries in minutes. Airstrips lit by flares at midnight. Hospitals where names were whispered because saying them too loudly made loss feel permanent. She had stood beside presidents, briefed senators, and written letters to families no one ever wanted to receive. Yet here on polished concrete, she was being measured by skin first and service second. Grant handed the credential holder to another officer who had just arrived, a younger woman named Officer Lena Morales. Morales opened it, scanned the card, then looked at Vanessa with a flicker of recognition. "Sir," she said quietly, "maybe we should run this through dispatch before we escalate." Grant's jaw tightened. "I know what I am doing." Morales lowered her eyes but did not look convinced. Vanessa noticed everything. The tremor in Grant's fingers. The uncertainty in Morales. The cameras now pointed from 3 different angles. The veterans entering the gala who had slowed to a respectful halt. A gray-haired man in a wheelchair lifted his cap and whispered, "That is General Brooks." No one near him reacted at first. Then the whisper spread in fragments. "Brooks. General Brooks. Could not be. Is it her?" Grant heard it too, and instead of pausing, he doubled down. Pride often moves fastest when truth is gaining ground. "Ma'am, turn around," he ordered. Vanessa remained still for one long breath. Then she complied with flawless discipline, shoulders square, posture unbroken. Morales looked away as if embarrassed for them all. Grant reached for standard cuffs at his belt, but before metal touched fabric, a black sedan pulled sharply to the curb. A uniformed army colonel stepped out from the passenger's side, froze at the scene, and removed his sunglasses with trembling disbelief. The colonel moved with the stunned urgency of a man who had just seen history mishandled in broad daylight. His dress blues were immaculate, ribbons aligned with mathematical precision, silver eagle bright at the collar. He crossed the sidewalk in quick measured steps and stopped 3 feet from Vanessa before snapping into a salute so sharp that even the crowd seemed to inhale. "Ma'am," he said, voice carrying farther than he intended. "Colonel Nathan Mercer, Office of Joint Logistics Command. My apologies for the delay." The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Heads turned. Phones rose higher. Officer Grant's hand froze at his belt. Morales blinked once, then twice, as if hoping she had misunderstood the last 30 seconds. Vanessa returned the salute with calm economy, her white glove lifting and lowering without flourish. "At ease, Colonel," she said. "You are on time. Circumstances are not." A few people in the crowd let out nervous laughter that died almost instantly. Grant stepped forward, trying to reclaim the ground slipping beneath him. "Sir, we are conducting an investigation." Mercer turned slowly. He was not a large man, but command has dimensions that do not require height. "Into what exactly?" Grant squared his shoulders. "Possible impersonation." Mercer looked from the officer to Vanessa, then back again. His expression did not change, but something in the air around him did. "You suspect Lieutenant General Vanessa Brooks is impersonating Lieutenant General Vanessa Brooks." Even the valet near the curb winced. Morales lowered her gaze to hide a smile she could not quite suppress. Grant's face flushed red beneath the afternoon light. "We had reason to question credentials." Mercer extended his hand. "Then let me save everyone time." Grant reluctantly passed over the leather credential holder. Mercer opened it, displayed the identification to Grant like a teacher revisiting a lesson, then held it up toward the nearest camera. "Federal access card. Department seal. Name in full. This officer commands a network responsible for moving personnel, medicine, fuel, and emergency assets across 3 continents, Mercer said. When hurricanes strike, when troops deploy, when hospitals need generators in 48 hours, her office answers before most people finish asking. The crowd grew quiet in a different way now. Not entertained silence. Respectful silence. The little girl stared at Vanessa as if she had just stepped out of a storybook. Her father removed his baseball cap. Across the hotel steps, several veterans who had paused earlier straightened their backs. Vanessa said nothing. She had learned long ago that truth often speaks loudest when others are forced to say it for you. Grant swallowed hard. If there has been a misunderstanding, there has, Mercer interrupted. But not the kind you think. A black Suburban rolled to the curb behind his sedan, then another. 2 men in dark suits stepped out and scanned the scene with practiced eyes. Hotel staff near the revolving doors suddenly stood taller. Someone inside the lobby whispered into an earpiece. The gala organizers had clearly realized what was unfolding outside. Morales took one step back from Grant, subtle but unmistakable. She no longer wanted to be standing in his shadow when consequences arrived. Vanessa turned her head slightly toward the hotel entrance where banners for the Veterans Leadership Gala hung between polished columns. Her own face was printed on one of them beside the words "Honor Through Service." Grant followed her gaze and saw it at the same moment the crowd did. Gasps rippled outward. There she was, 20 feet high in formal portrait lighting. Same eyes, same posture, same calm authority he had refused to see in person. The irony hit the sidewalk like thunder without sound. Mercer closed the credential wallet and handed it back to Vanessa with both hands. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "the secretary's office has been informed. He is requesting immediate contact." Vanessa slipped the wallet into her pocket, then finally looked directly at Grant. Her voice remained steady, almost gentle. "Officer, I believe I mentioned this mistake would outlive the afternoon." No one moved for several seconds. The city noise returned in fragments first, a distant horn, the hum of buses, the low murmur of traffic rolling down Constitution Avenue, but the sidewalk itself remained trapped inside the moment. Officer Grant stood with his shoulders squared and nowhere to place his eyes. He looked at the banner above the hotel doors, then at Vanessa, then at the phones pointed toward him from every direction. Facts had arrived, and they had not arrived quietly. Vanessa adjusted one glove at the wrist, the motion small and unhurried. Years of command had taught her that composure can expose panic better than anger ever could. Colonel Mercer stepped aside as one of the dark-suited men approached carrying a secure phone. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, extending it with both hands, "the secretary is holding." Vanessa accepted the phone. The crowd leaned closer without meaning to. Even Grant listened. "General Brooks speaking," she said. Her tone softened by half a degree. "Yes, sir. I am outside the gala." She paused, listening. A faint smile touched one corner of her mouth, the kind built from restraint rather than amusement. "No, sir. I am unharmed." Delayed, but unharmed. Another pause. "Understood." She handed the phone back. The suited man nodded once and retreated. Grant cleared his throat. "General Brooks, if there has been any inconvenience, I would like to apologize." The words sounded practiced and incomplete the moment they left him. Vanessa turned to face him fully. Afternoon light caught the silver stars on her shoulders and sent thin flashes across the pavement. "Officer Grant," she said, "you do not apologize for inconvenience when the issue was judgment." Morales stood a few feet away, silent and rigid, hearing every word. Grant swallowed. "I was following procedure." "Procedure begins with verification," Vanessa replied. "Bias begins with assumption. Learn the difference, and your badge will weigh less on innocent people." No one in the crowd spoke. Some lowered their phones, suddenly aware they had been witnessing more than a public mistake. A man in a business suit slowly clapped once before thinking better of it, and stopping. The little girl from earlier tugged her father's sleeve again. "She sounds like Grandma when she means it," she whispered. Her father nearly smiled. Hotel staff hurried down the steps now, led by a silver-haired woman in a tailored navy dress. Marissa Langford, director of the gala, reached Vanessa with visible embarrassment. "General Brooks, we are deeply sorry. Everyone inside is waiting for you." Vanessa nodded politely. "Then let us not keep veterans waiting any longer." Langford glanced at Grant, then looked away as if eye contact itself might be contagious. Mercer bent to retrieve the leather folder Vanessa had placed earlier on the hood of the sedan. He brushed a trace of dust from it and handed it back carefully. "Your remarks, ma'am." Vanessa accepted the folder and noticed the corner photo peeking out from inside. Her late husband smiling in uniform, sunlight on his face from another year, another life. She slid it fully back into place. Some wounds do not close. They simply learn discipline. Grant took one uncertain step forward. "General, is there anything I can do to make this right?" Vanessa studied him for a long moment. Not with anger, not with triumph, with the steadiness of someone measuring whether a lesson had entered or merely passed by. "Yes," she said at last. "Next time you see a black woman wearing authority, do not ask whether she stole it." The words hit harder because they were quiet. Grant lowered his head. Morales looked at him, then at Vanessa, and something like gratitude crossed her face. The veterans near the entrance straightened as Vanessa approached the stairs. One elderly man in a Bronze Star cap raised a trembling hand in salute. She returned it instantly. As the revolving doors opened and warm golden lights spilled onto the sidewalk, the crowd parted without being asked. Some people move aside because of rank, others because they have just witnessed dignity. The lobby doors turned in slow circles, and with each sweep of glass the noise of the street faded behind Vanessa like a chapter closing itself. Inside, the Grand Regent Hotel glowed with warm chandeliers, polished marble, and the kind of quiet luxury built to impress people who were already impressed with themselves. Yet tonight the room belonged to veterans, military families, and names engraved on folded programs beside words like sacrifice and service. Conversations stopped as Vanessa entered. Heads turned. Then one by one, guests rose from their seats near the ballroom entrance. Some recognized her from television briefings and congressional testimony. Others recognized something deeper, the posture of someone who had carried responsibility longer than comfort. Marissa Langford hurried beside her, voice low and apologetic. "General Brooks, we can delay the program another few minutes if you need time." Vanessa handed her gloves to an attendant. "The men and women being honored tonight waited through deployments, surgeries, and funerals," she said. "They can survive my late arrival, but they should not have to." Langford nodded quickly. Colonel Mercer remained 2 paces behind, still visibly unsettled by what had happened outside. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "the department has already requested the body camera footage and witness reports." Vanessa slowed near a mirror framed in gold leaf. She adjusted one ribbon bar by less than an inch. "Good," she said. "Then truth will not need witnesses." Across the lobby, a group of younger officers in formal dress. Uniforms straightened as she passed. One lieutenant, no older than 24, stared at her with the nervous admiration reserved for legends who unexpectedly prove they are real. Vanessa paused beside him. "Relax your shoulders, Lieutenant," she said. "You look like you are reporting for punishment." Laughter moved through the group, breaking the tension. The lieutenant smiled, embarrassed. "Yes, ma'am. And breathe," she added. "The country asks enough of you without borrowing your oxygen too." She continued toward the ballroom doors. Inside, round tables shimmered under candlelight. Flags from each military branch stood along the stage. A string quartet near the far wall lowered their bows mid-song as guests rose to their feet. The standing ovation began in the back, where older veterans were seated, then rolled forward like weather across open land. Vanessa stopped for a moment at the threshold, not because she needed applause, because she knew many hands clapping had once written letters home with trembling fingers or saluted folded flags through tears. She placed her palm lightly over the leather folder tucked beneath her arm. Inside, along with her speech, was the photo of her husband Daniel Brooks, killed 12 years earlier during a rescue operation overseas. He had believed service was love in uniform. She still carried that sentence without ever saying it aloud. On stage, the master of ceremonies leaned into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's keynote speaker and recipient of the Sentinel Award, Lieutenant General Vanessa Brooks." The applause deepened. Vanessa walked to the podium with measured steps. Mercer took his place near the curtain. Langford exhaled in relief. At the rear of the ballroom, 2 Secret Service-style agents quietly entered and took positions near side exits, a reminder that powerful offices had noticed the afternoon. Vanessa set the folder on the podium and looked over the room. Crystal glasses, dress medals, silver hair, young cadets. Widows wearing small pins over black dresses. Men with canes. Women with empty seats beside them. She did not begin immediately. Silence, used well, can gather a room. Better than any microphone. Finally she spoke. Before I say anything prepared tonight, she said, voice steady and warm, I would like to thank everyone who stood when I walked in. Not for me. She paused. For what the uniform is supposed to mean. The room went still again, but this time with reverence, not tension. And somewhere outside, under fading daylight, Officer Tyler Grant remained on the sidewalk hearing applause through the glass. The ballroom held its breath after her opening line. It was the kind of silence built not from discomfort, but a tension so complete it became its own sound. Vanessa rested both hands lightly on the edges of the podium and let the room settle around her. Candle flames flickered in crystal holders. Ice shifted softly in untouched water glasses. Somewhere near the back, a cane tapped once against marble and then stopped. People often confuse a uniform with authority, she said. It is not authority. It is responsibility stitched into fabric. Several heads lowered. A retired Navy admiral removed his glasses and wiped them slowly. Vanessa's voice carried without strain, rich with years of briefings, ceremonies, and private conversations held outside hospital rooms. The cloth does not make the person honorable. The person must honor the cloth. She glanced down at the leather folder, then opened it. Instead of reading the prepared speech on top, she reached beneath the pages and withdrew the photograph she had carried all day. Daniel Brooks in fatigues, smiling into sunlight, sleeves rolled, eyes alive with the easy confidence of someone who trusted goodness even when the world did not. She held the picture where the front tables could see it. My husband believed service was not about being saluted, she said. He believed it was about showing up where pain lives and refusing to leave others there alone. The room softened around the edges. A widow in pearls pressed a napkin to her eyes. Colonel Mercer near the curtain stared straight ahead, jaw set tight. Vanessa placed the photo beside the microphone. This morning I visited his grave before coming here. 12 years gone, and I still speak to him like he is running. Late. Gentle laughter moved through the room, touched with grief. I told him I had another long day ahead. She paused, eyes briefly distant. Turns out I was right. Some guests exchanged glances, now understanding that something significant had happened before she arrived. Vanessa did not explain. She did not need to. There are people in this country who will thank a uniform before they trust the person wearing it, she continued. And there are people who distrust the person first, no matter how many years were given, no matter how much was carried. Her gaze moved across the room, not accusing, simply clear. That is not only a failure of manners. It is a failure of imagination. The little phrases landed quietly, but they stayed where they struck. At a table near the stage, a senator shifted uncomfortably. Across the room, a young black cadet sat taller in her chair, eyes shining. Vanessa noticed her and offered the smallest nod. If you lead others, she said, learn this early. Rank can force compliance. It cannot earn respect. Fear can create silence. It cannot create trust. And assumptions can feel efficient right up until they humiliate the innocent. No one moved now. Even servers at the side walls stood still with trays balanced at shoulder height. Outside the ballroom doors, muffled through thick wood and carpeted halls, came the faint echo of raised voices from the street, then nothing again. Vanessa folded her hands. I have commanded operations across oceans. I have briefed presidents. I have buried friends. None of those tasks required more courage than staying calm when someone decided who I was before asking my name. The words entered the room like cold air through an open window. Marissa Langford looked down at her table. Mercer's eyes closed for 1 second. Vanessa's expression remained composed, but there was weight in it now, old and familiar. Tonight is not about me, she said softly. It is about every veteran who came home and still had to prove they belonged. She stepped back from the podium. No applause came yet. Only silence again, deeper than before, because some truths ask to be carried before they are answered. The silence broke slowly, not with applause, but with chairs moving back across polished floor as people rose one table at a time. An elderly Marine with a silver cane stood first near the rear wall, then a nurse in veteran service ribbons, then a Gold Star mother gripping the hand of her grown son. Within seconds, the entire ballroom was on its feet. The ovation that followed was not loud at first. It was heavy, deliberate, hands meeting hands with the weight of memory behind them. Vanessa remained still beside the podium, one hand resting near Daniel's photograph, eyes lowered for a moment as if accepting something larger than praise. Then the ballroom doors opened. Every head turned. Marissa Langford looked toward the entrance, startled. Two senior Defense Department aides entered with quick, purposeful steps, followed by a tall man with silver hair and a dark suit cut with military precision. Secretary Marcus Hale. His presence changed the air the way storms change pressure before rain. Conversations died instantly. Cameras appeared from nowhere. Colonel Mercer straightened so sharply it nearly sounded. Hale walked directly down the center aisle without waiting for introduction. When he reached the stage, he looked up at Vanessa and placed his hand over his heart. "General Brooks," he said, voice carrying to the back wall. "On behalf of the Department of Defense, I owe you an apology for what happened outside this building today." A murmur rippled through the room. Vanessa met his eyes calmly. "Mr. Secretary, the country owes veterans fairness. Apologies to me are optional." Hale nodded once, absorbing the correction without resistance. "Then let me begin there." He turned to the audience. "Many of you served under policies I inherited, systems I did not build, and failures I am still responsible for correcting. Today, one of our finest officers was publicly questioned not because of conduct, but because of assumption." No one shifted now. Even the servers stood frozen at the walls. Hale continued, "That should trouble every American in this room." He then reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed a small Navy case embossed with the seal of the department. "General Brooks, this was meant for later in the program." He opened the case. Inside rested the Distinguished Civil Leadership Medal, gold catching chandelier light in warm flashes. "But after what you demonstrated today, it belongs in the truth of this moment." He stepped onto the stage himself rather than asking her to come down. That detail did not go unnoticed. Vanessa inclined her head as he placed the metal ribbon around her neck. Applause erupted again, louder now, but mixed with something deeper than celebration. Vindication has a sound when it is shared publicly. Near the back of the room, the young black cadet who had watched her earlier was openly crying, though she smiled through it. Hale leaned toward the microphone. "There is one more matter." His tone sharpened. "The Metropolitan Police Commissioner has initiated an immediate review. Officer Tyler Grant has been removed from field duty pending investigation." Gasps moved through the ballroom. Marissa Langford covered her mouth. Colonel Mercer exhaled for what seemed the first time in 10 minutes. Vanessa's expression did not change. Triumph never visited her face easily. Hale looked at her again. "Would you like to address that decision?" The room became still enough to hear ice melt in glasses. Vanessa stepped to the microphone. "Yes," she said. "Do not make him the whole story." She let the sentence settle. If one officer acted wrongly, correct him. If a system trained him poorly, correct yourselves. Several officials in attendance looked down at their tables. "Punishment can remove a person," she continued. "Only honesty removes a pattern." The applause that followed was immediate and fierce. Hale smiled despite himself. "That," he said quietly into the microphone, "is why she leads." And outside on the darkening sidewalk, beneath banners carrying her name, officers still stood where the lesson had first begun. The applause lingered long after Secretary Hale stepped away from the microphone. It rolled through the ballroom in waves, then softened into clusters of conversation, handshakes, and damp eyes hidden behind practiced smiles. Vanessa thanked Hale with a brief nod and removed the medal case from its velvet tray, setting it beside Daniel's photograph rather than around her neck. Some honors are better carried than displayed. Marissa Langford approached with visible emotion. "General Brooks," she said quietly, "I have hosted this gala for 12 years. I have never seen a room changed like that." Vanessa offered a small smile. "Rooms are easy to change," she replied. "People take longer." Across the ballroom, veterans and young cadets formed a respectful line, each hoping for a handshake, a photograph, or simply a sentence they might remember later. Vanessa greeted every one of them without hurry. She listened to names, deployments, losses, grandchildren, surgeries, second chances. Leadership, in her view, had always sounded less like speeches and more like remembering details others thought were too small to matter. Near the end of the line stood the young black cadet from earlier, shoulders rigid with nerves. Her name tag read Cadet Simone Harper. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" she asked. Vanessa's eyes warmed. "That is usually the most useful kind." Simone swallowed. "I almost left ROTC last month. I was tired of being doubted before I opened my mouth." Vanessa studied the young woman for a moment. "And now?" Simone glanced toward the stage. "Now I think maybe staying is also a form of service." Vanessa reached out and straightened the cadet's crooked collar tab by a fraction of an inch. "Stay excellent," she said. "Do not merely stay." Simone's eyes filled instantly. At the ballroom entrance, Colonel Mercer appeared again, this time less formal, more human. "Ma'am," he said softly, "there is someone outside requesting 5 minutes." He insisted on waiting until the event concluded. Vanessa already knew who it would be. She closed the leather folder, tucked Daniel's photograph inside, and nodded. The hotel lobby had thinned by the time she stepped out. Candlelight from the ballroom faded behind her into polished marble and distant music. Near the front doors, Officer Tyler Grant stood alone beside a potted palm beneath the brass chandelier. His vest was gone, his patrol belt removed. Without equipment and posture, he looked younger, smaller, uncertain where to place his hands. Morales waited several yards away, giving space but not privacy. Grant straightened when Vanessa approached. "General Brooks," he said, voice rougher than before. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "You have 3 minutes," she replied. He nodded quickly. "I was wrong." The words came plain now, stripped of defense. "I judged you before I verified anything. I spoke to you in a way I would not have spoken to others. I have replayed it every minute since." Vanessa said nothing. Silence asks for honesty more effectively than interruption. Grant continued. "I was raised by a father who taught me to respect the military. I thought that meant I respected service. Today I learned that I only respected the version I expected to see." Morales lowered her eyes. Hearing truth she likely wished had come sooner. Grant swallowed hard. "I cannot undo public humiliation. I know that. But I am sorry." Vanessa regarded him steadily, the lobby lights reflecting softly in her eyes. "Regret is about feeling bad," she said. "Repentance is about becoming better. Decide which one this is." He looked shaken by how gently the sentence landed. "I want to become better," he said. She nodded once. "Then begin where it hurts. Examine what inside you felt so certain." Grant's shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but recognition. "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa turned to leave, then paused. "And Officer Grant." He looked up quickly. "The next black woman in authority you meet should benefit from what this one cost you." She walked toward the doors as Morales quietly stepped beside Grant, no longer as subordinate, but witness. The night air outside the Grand Regent had turned cool and clean, carrying the faint scent of rain from somewhere beyond the city lights. The crowd was gone now. News vans had moved on. Valet lines had thinned to a few waiting cars and tired engines idling under the porte cochere. What remained was quieter than spectacle and far more lasting. Vanessa stepped through the revolving doors alone, leather folder tucked beneath one arm, metal case in the other hand. The flags above the entrance moved gently in the breeze, their fabric whispering. Against metal poles, across the sidewalk, Officer Tyler Grant was gone. So were the cameras, the tension, the need for witnesses. Only Officer Morales remained near the curb, speaking softly with an elderly veteran whose ride had not yet arrived. She looked up when Vanessa emerged and immediately stood straighter. "Good evening, ma'am." Vanessa inclined her head. "Good evening, officer." Morales hesitated, then said, "For what it is worth, some of us join to protect people from moments like today." Vanessa considered her for a beat. "Then do not let cynicism train you out of why you came." Morales nodded as if receiving orders she intended to keep. A black sedan rolled to the curb, door opened by a driver in dark gloves. Colonel Mercer stepped out from the front passenger seat. "Ready when you are, ma'am." Vanessa did not move yet. Her eyes had fallen on the little girl from earlier, now sitting on a bench near the entrance beside her father, swinging her legs above the pavement. She still wore a school backpack with glitter peeling from the straps. When she noticed Vanessa looking, she hopped down and approached with the fearless seriousness children reserve for important things. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you really a general?" Vanessa knelt so they were eye level. "I am." The girl studied the stars on her shoulders, then asked the question adults often bury under better manners. "Did it make you sad when they did not believe you?" The father started to apologize, but Vanessa lifted a hand gently. Sometimes, she said. But sadness is not the end of the story. The girl thought about that. Then what is? Vanessa smiled, small and warm. What you choose next. She opened the metal case and removed the ribbon pin inside. Not the metal itself, but the small lapel star tucked beneath it. She placed it carefully in the child's palm. Keep this until you earn your own version. The father's eyes widened. Ma'am, we cannot take that. You are not taking it, Vanessa said. You are holding it for the future. The girl closed her fingers around the star as if it might fly away. Thank you, General. She stood straighter without knowing she had done it, and offered the most determined salute her small hand could manage. Vanessa returned it with full precision. Colonel Mercer looked away for a second, pretending to inspect traffic. Some emotions prefer privacy. Vanessa